Kincaid is now our Director of Labor and Human Rights Organizing. Phil Reason is our new Director of Organizing. He worked with Councilor Turner. He helped to set up my first meeting with Councilor Turner when he came home. He's going to bring Councilor Turner home to the mic. Phil.
I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Coming out today, this afternoon, in celebration for the 50th anniversary for the March on Washington for jobs, justice, and freedom. You know, I'm a son of Boston. I was born and raised here. And today makes me very, very happy to see people from all walks of life to come out here on the Common, to let our voices be heard to City Hall, on the Hill, to Beacon Hill, to the State House, to let us know we're bringing voice to the voiceless. Yeah. I also have the pleasure today of introducing one of Boston's founding freedom fighters. And when injustices are happening in other parts of this country, there are injustices here that we cannot stand for. The man I'm going to introduce you has fought as an organizer for over decades here in Boston, but also on the policy level as Boston's former city councilor, Chuck Turner.
Thank you. You know, I'm a little pleased and honored to be back with you. One thing, let me say that I was saying to some people as we rode down here, and that is that, you know, the problem I have is that coming back to some place where you haven't been for almost 3 years, people see you where you were when you were there. And 3 years has passed. And you were someplace that you weren't 3 years ago. Think about it. Think about what you thought and where you were and kind of what you were focused on 3 years ago and where you are now. Well, you were all the same way. And I say that to say that my heart overflows with the welcome. You know, and I really appreciate the welcome. And I really hope that what I have to say today will seem connected to what I had to say 3 years ago, and that you will see a continuation of the vision that I've tried to have in moving forward with our struggle. You know, the March on Washington, the March for Jobs and Justice, was followed by the Equal Accommodations Act. It was followed by the Voters' Rights Act. All of those three pieces of action, the Fair Housing Act of 1968, those actions framed an era of unprecedented progress for African Americans in this country in terms of our moving into the system. There was a growth of opportunity, there was a growth of wealth, of jobs. We have people entering professions, every walk of life. We had a few politicians at the beginning of that era. Now we have thousands at all levels of government, even a president of the United States and a governor of this state. So I have to start by saying that we have to recognize that over the last 50 years there's been unprecedented progress for African Americans. And yet, in the honest realistic appraisal of the situation, would have to say that the majority of us, the majority of African Americans are worse off today than we were in 1963, brothers and sisters. We have to, if we're going to be honest, if we're going to really base our movement, our activities on a firm foundation, we have to look at reality. Looking at reality doesn't mean that we are disrespecting the work that went on. But it means that if we are going to be in sync with our people, we have to be in sync with all our people. We can't just be in sync with those who have opportunities, those who've moved ahead, those who have degrees. We have to be in sync with all our people. The fight, 350-year fight in this country was waged in order that African Americans as a whole could be free, could be equal, could live a quality of life that was deserving by a human being. Our fight was for everyone, not just a few. Wasn't it? Yes. Wasn't that the objective? But that's not the reality in Boston. 20%, we have a small black community in Boston, about 167, maybe 170,000 people. 20%, brothers and sisters, 20%. 30 to 35,000 are poor by federal poverty standards. 20%. The median income for the black community in Boston is $33,000 in a city where the median income for whites is $66,000. Brothers and sisters, we have to recognize in this city that 50 years after the struggle, after the march, and after 50 years of struggle to build a strong black community in Boston that's allied with other communities that also have struggled for their fair share, our black community is in danger of being driven out. Why is it in danger of being driven out? It's in danger of being driven out because we have a system that's focused on economics and not morality. What are you saying, Chuck? I'm saying that in Jackson Square, we have apartments being built. Apartments are being built in Jackson Square today. And those apartments, one-bedroom apartment starts at $1,700. Brothers and sisters, the median income in the black community in Boston is $33,000. You can't afford an apartment when you can't afford an apartment at what they cost now, $12,000 and $13,000. So it's clear that you can't afford an apartment at $1,700, and yet that's what development in our community is bringing about. Is it the developer's fault, they say? This is economics. There aren't subsidies. The federal government just told the BHA that we're only going to give you enough money in next year to fund 10,000 of the 11,000 Section 8 vouchers that you've already given out. There are 1,000 vouchers that aren't going to be funded by the federal government. BHA, because of progressive leadership, is trying to figure out a strategy where they don't have to evict people, where they don't have to raise the rents. But what if sequestration keeps going on year after year after year? It means that the Section 8 subsidy program is destroyed. 50% of the people I represented as a district counselor were in their apartments because of subsidies, brothers and sisters. We are in a crisis. Seriously, we are in a crisis, an economic crisis. And the government, we've got a black president who, I listened to him today. He said nothing. He said nothing about a strategy for change. He acknowledged that there was an economic problem, and he said march. He didn't say what you march for, or how to march, or where to march. He just said march. So we have an African-American president who is providing no leadership at all around the economic crisis, not only that we have in Boston, but that we have throughout the country. We have a governor. I would rather have Governor Patrick than the other people who run against him over the years. But I have to acknowledge, and you have to acknowledge, that the brother does not say anything about the poverty. About the poverty, not only in Boston, but across the state. The poverty that is being faced not just by blacks, but Latinos, Asians, and poor working class whites. We have a black governor who is turning his back on the issue of poverty. And what does that mean? It means that the gentrification wave keeps going on and on and on. One of my last acts as a city councilor was to vote against a tax break, a city tax break for Liberty Mutual. I said Liberty Mutual made $30 billion. The year we voted a tax break, they had made $30 billion. They were paying their executives millions of dollars. We didn't know it at the time. They were paying their chief executive $50 million a year. That's Liberty Mutual. And yet, Mayor Menino, Governor Patrick, the city council, the state legislature gave Liberty Mutual a tax break. Brothers and sisters, what I'm trying to explain, what I'm trying to say, is that we have a system that's failed us.
Yes, sir.
We have a political, economic system that's failed us.
Yes.
African Americans 47 years ago entered into a political system that it was corrupt then, but the reality is today there is a level of corruption in the political economic system that is beyond belief.
That's right.
I mean, I'm just saying, let's be real, let's be honest, because if we're serious about changing the condition, we have to be honest about the conditions that we have to change. We have to acknowledge that while the State House and the council and the president we have to focus on it, if they aren't doing anything now to deal with the economic problems we're dealing with, if they haven't been doing anything, then let us not rely on them.
Right.
Tell me any people in history that have looked to the system that enslaved them, and that kept them in an enslaved situation that freed them. Tell me one people who have been freed by the system that enslaved them. And the system that we function under today is the same system that essentially perpetuated slavery. We talk about the Constitution. The Constitution was the document of a slave state, brothers and sisters. I'm not saying that to say that we shouldn't move forward, because I believe in our future. I believe that we haven't come here and spent 400 years struggling as African Americans to go down with this ship. I don't believe that. I believe in our future, but I believe in a future where we stand up and we start to treat ourselves and act like respecting human beings. That we say, as Soledad said, that I am. And because I am worth something, and I recognize that the political system and the economic system does not give me any respect for being a human being.
That's right.
Now the question is, I mean, it's just talk, but it's analysis. It's important to look at that. The question is, what do we do? Well, first we recognize that Congress voted the Voting Rights Act not because they wanted to. It's a Southern Congress. A Southern president signed it. The same with the Equal Accommodations Act. Why did they vote it? They voted for it not just because of the March on Washington, the March for Jobs and Justice. That was a key part. But what led up to the March on Washington, the March for Jobs and Justice, what led up to it is people in town after town, city after city said, no justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. Birmingham, they said, no justice, no peace. In Montgomery, they said, no justice, no peace. In Nashville, they said, no justice, no peace. And it was the fact that they rode those buses, and they confronted those mobs, and they confronted the dogs in Birmingham, that created the atmosphere where our civil rights leaders could come together and have a march, and that could lead to political progress, but it was the people who created it, the people in town after town who took the risk and said, I am somebody, I'm not going to let you treat me as if I am nobody anymore. I don't care what you do, I'm going to stand up and be who I am. Let me talk more specifically about two things. One is our movement can't just focus on civil rights and voting rights. We have 30 to 40 to 50% unemployment across the country in the African American community. Similar numbers in the Latino community. Serious unemployment in white working class community. And in the Asian community, the same thing is there. The reality, brothers and sisters, if we as African Americans have 30 to 40% unemployment, and that has been going on decade after decade, voting rights and civil rights are not enough. If I have a job, and that job is not producing enough money that I can get an apartment in Roxbury that costs $1,000 or $1,100 a month, a fight for jobs is not enough. Darren said it, we're talking about living wages. We have to produce an economic revolution in this country, brothers and sisters. An economic revolution. What do I mean by an economic revolution? I mean that we have to produce a movement that disrupts the present system and forces a reevaluation of how we do business in this country. And it has to involve blacks, it has to involve whites, it has to involve Latinos, it has to involve Asians, Cape Verdeans, because we can't have any racial justice in this country unless there's economic justice for all. There's no racial justice. We cannot achieve racial justice in this country unless there's economic justice for all. Why? Because the 1% will play us off against each other. There can't be racial justice until there's economic justice, which is why we need an economic revolution. Voting rights is not going to free us economically. It's not going to eliminate our status as servants of the rich. We have to take action. Now, what would economic justice look like in Boston? Well, you look around at the buildings around us. Do you realize that businesses in Boston are making billions of dollars? Yeah. They're making billions of dollars. Do you realize that they're paying, the average vice president is making $4, $5, $6 million a year? That they're paying their presidents maybe 10, 16, $20 million a year, that the president of Liberty Mutual, that Governor Patrick and Menino and the council and the legislature voted 3 years ago to give a tax break because they threatened to leave Boston, was getting $50 million a year. Every one of these business corporations in Boston, if there was economic justice, ought to have 50% Boston workers at every level of their business. 50% Boston workers at every level of those businesses if there's economic justice in Boston. That's what economic justice here would look like. There's a lot of construction that's going on in every neighborhood in Boston. Economic justice does not just mean that the Boston plan is being followed site by site, and when it isn't, people get out and demonstrate and make sure that workers get brought to the site. Economic justice is that when say to the unions, we will no longer let you run those unions as if they're private fiefdoms. Those unions are being catered to by our politicians, and if they're being catered to by our politicians, that means that they need to hire Boston workers of every race, so that when they do work in Boston, at least 50% of the jobs in every neighborhood are being filled by Boston workers from those neighborhoods. Come on. That's what economic justice looks like. What is it? Economic justice? What? Economic justice has our children sitting down during April, May, and June, not walking the streets and begging the mayor and begging the governor and begging the corporations for jobs. economic justice means that we have convinced the mayor, the governor, and the corporate heads that their responsibility is to produce the money necessary to have a job for every youth in Boston. For every youth in Boston that needs and wants a job. It's obscene, brothers and sisters, that we should put the burden on our children of having to walk from corporations to the State House to the city and beg for an $8 an hour job. What ideas are we putting in their heads when they have to do that and they see the corporations and the vast amount of money that's been spent in this city and the wealth, and they're begging for an $8,000 job? If we have respect for ourselves as adults, that won't happen next year. Why won't it happen? Because we will say to the corporations that if you don't work with the city and the governor to create the amount of money necessary to hire every young person in Boston, not $8, let's raise it at least to $9, $10. But that if you don't do that, we have to go back to our old saying. If our children can't work, you can't work. A protest movement in Boston has to understand that if we can't get cooperation from the corporations, if we can't get cooperation from the unions, if we can't get cooperation from the economic sector, then we have to do what the protest marches in the 50s and the 60s did, and that is we have to disrupt the operation of the city, brothers and sisters. You know, we can't play, we can't act like we can have discussions, and those discussions are going to bring power. Power comes from people who are standing up and taking the risk and putting themselves on the line to build justice. Justice isn't given, justice is taken through the actions that people take who say, I am somebody, I am worth something. That's how justice happens. If we are serious about respecting the work, what happened 50 years ago, then let's not just focus on Martin Luther King and that gathering on the Washington Mall. Let's focus on all those black people and white people and Latino people who struggled in their cities, because they are the heroes. They are the heroes, brothers and sisters. Why are they the heroes? Because they stood up when nobody was with them, when there was no Congress, no president looking, no progressive wealth being put out to fund buses to come to D.C. They stood up because they said we're not going to take it anymore. And if we're serious about reduplicating the spirit of 1963, then we have to reduplicate the spirit of 1954 and 5 and 6 and 7. We have to remember that it was Birmingham. In Birmingham, young people got out and faced the dogs and the fire hoses. And that is, they had the courage to put their lives on the line. I know it's probably time for me to go, but 5:47. I really have spoken over my time. I appreciate it. Let me say... Let me say two other quick things quickly. One is that we also have to understand that if we are going to, in fact, have an economy that can deal with our needs, and the needs of our unemployed, we have to build that economy. We have to challenge the economy that's here, but we have to build an economy. 98% of the clothing in America that we buy is made overseas. Why shouldn't we be forming worker cooperatives that are making clothing? Why shouldn't we be getting the young people who have design experience, making the designs? Why shouldn't we be giving the consumers in as many areas as possible an opportunity to buy American rather than buy from the 1%? We need to form an economic movement by bringing our workers with skills together and saying, we're going to help you form cooperative companies, and we are going to then urge people to buy from you rather than buy from these offshore products. The other thing is that there are some of us who aren't ready for a variety of reasons to move in to the Boston economy. We need to have a land movement. we need to have bases of land where 5 to 6 to 700 people can come together. People who said, I know I got nothing in the city, I'm just a nomad, I can't get any foothold, and who come together to raise their food, to produce products, to educate their children. See, the problem is that the 1% and the political leaders don't respect us. They think we look to them for everything because we can't do anything for ourselves. Brothers and sisters, it's time for us to say to those who are truly nomads in Boston and across the country that it's time for you to show yourself and everybody else who you are. And you can't do that in cities where apartments cost $1,000 a month. In order to do that, you have to create new communities where you can feed, clothe, and house yourself. And maybe when you do that, you can give some courage to the middle class to stand up and fight with conviction rather than go along with the stuff that happens. Let me just conclude by saying, some of you might be saying, Chuck, you're right. He spent 3 years away and he comes back talking all this stuff. But let me remind you of your history, whether you're black, Latin, Asian, or white. Our ancestors built the wealth of this country that the 1% is using to enslave us. The Africans in the South built the wealth of the South and continue to build it as serfs after the Civil War. We built the wealth of the South. The white workers in the North built the wealth of the industrialists. Without those workers, there would not be industrial wealth. Without the Latinos in the West and the Southwest, there would not be the wealth that was produced there. The Asians built the railroads. They built the railroads as well as produced wealth. If our ancestors, under the conditions that they face, could produce the wealth that the 1% uses to enslave us today, why can't we build the wealth so we have a foundation for future generations where they can escape the economic slavery in this country? Brothers and sisters, it's up to us. It doesn't have to be that bad, but we have to stand up and not think about 1963. We have to stand up and think about 1956 and 57, 58, because that's where the struggle was really won, when people said, we're not going to be slaves anymore. The question is, are you still willing to be a slave?
Thanks, Councilor Turner. One more round of applause for Councilor Chuck Turner. One more round for Chuck Turner. Let's give a shout out to the Boston Chinatown Residents Association, Mr. Yee. Let's give a shout out to New England United for Justice and Mothers for Justice and Equality in the Leadership Forum. Let's give a shout out for the Somerville Community Corporation.